order. Roll call. Lynn, you here?
I'm here. Hoskins here.
Moore here?
Richardson here.
All right. Thank you. Public comment, we have no one here. No public comment, anybody online?
Does anyone online have a comment? Please raise your hand.
No. It works.
We can hear you, Walt. Can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Obviously, you just said you did. Okay.
All right, no public comment. Committee reports, Economic Development Committee, did anybody hear from that? Online?
Kristen is. I don't know if she wants to speak or if Sue wants to. She's not raising her hand.
She's not raising her hand. Kristen, you want to speak?
Should I allow her? Nope, she's still muted.
Oh,
Hello.
yeah.
Hi, Kristen, did you want to speak for the Economic Development Committee?
I thought Jenny was going to, but I can if you want me to.
Sure.
I think we're just working on kind of like updating or trying to get some ideas of the codes that we would like you guys to update with like the grease trap and the lights. I think a lot of the things that are kind of on the agenda to talk about today. And then also just keep working towards trying to create like the historical designation of the downtown and create, you know, just kind of still working along on the same thing.
Great. Remind me when your meetings are?
Our next meeting is October 4th, I believe.
Do you do once a month or ad hoc, or how do you do it?
We try to meet once a month. Yeah, sometimes it gets pushed out a little bit farther, but generally we try to meet before you guys meet.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Is that all you have?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I mean, unless Sue wants to add anything, but yeah.
All right. New business, planning code review. So the mayor said that the city council does this with city code, and she suggested we do this with city building code. So going through it section by section, Walt, do you want to have you seen planning commissions do this before? Just kind of wade through and look for anachronisms or, things that need changing?
Yes, you certainly can do that. My thought is you may want to be a little bit more global because it's going to take time and money. And so I'm thinking you may want to get a grant for some of this stuff to like revamp the code. If that doesn't work, we can kind of just take it chapter by chapter. And if there's little funny things we need to change, we could do that at the end of the review. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that if you want to be a little bit more, fast forward, we can certainly do that. But if you're satisfied with just doing like one chapter a meeting, I think that's certainly doable. Normally you try to focus on a few things, but I don't think there's anything wrong with having a walkthrough. In fact, I would encourage it for the simple fact that I think we can all learn something from it. And I have a few choice comments about things that might need to be changed as well. It might be very beneficial. So I know I switched my point around, but if you feel that we have the time and the city certainly has the budget for, spending an extra hour or so once in a while, I certainly am in favor of that. I think that would be a good idea.
Great, I guess, we'll apply our, minds to it, but I also am intrigued about the idea of getting a grant for somebody that has, a lot of experience and, broader knowledge about maybe what's missing. We'll see things that are here that look funny, but we won't know maybe some things that are missing that somebody else might spot.
Well,
Go ahead.
I'm sort of patting myself on the back bit, but I just wrote the new code for Nehalem, and I've written a code for Wheeler. In fact, I think I've written 10 different land use codes, including Millersburg and Sweet Home. And so, and I also keep up to date on the changes in state law. So, instead of having an outside force do this, we can do this on a very much a staff level. I guess I just want to let you know, you have an in-house resource for this, okay?
Sounds good. That makes sense. Would we be able to get a grant to pay the hours that you put into it to do that?
There's a couple of opportunities. Interesting. In fact, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about, technical assistance grants. I know there's a couple of things we'd like to do like right now, but it's quite simple that these are annual grants, not just every biennium, but they're annual grants. And if we go through a number of chapters and identify a lot of changes, I think it'd be very simple to go to DLCD and say, look, Planning Commission has spent enormous amount of hours, looked at their code, and they would like some assistance in going through the formal work of making numerous changes. So that would certainly be an option. I'm thinking right now for this year, again, this is just my thought, that we do have some related matters such as downtown, formula businesses that we would address on a planning level. And we have a couple of things that would probably be best addressed on the municipal code level. So we could do it either way you think. And don't forget, if we go through a complete code revamp, that would include everything that's been laid out before you. And that's certainly worth a thought.
Well, tell me the difference between planning code and municipal code.
Okay, the planning code is part of the municipal code, but has a separate set of, let's say, state jurisdiction, if you will. For us to amend the planning document, which is basically titles 11 and 13, requires us to notify DLCD, notify them 35 days prior to the first hearing, and also make sure they know when the second hearing is going to be. There's a long process. It takes 4 to 5 months easily to go through a code amendment. And municipal code is not subject to land use laws, at least those that are outside of the titles 11 and 12, 10 and 11. The council may modify those monthly if they choose. I mean, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense in all cases, but as circumstances change, the council has a lot more flexibility. So something that would involve, say, the sewage treatment plant with fats, oils, and grease, that would be best in a municipal code, because you can make the change. In fact, you could adopt it rather quickly, and you can make amendments as you see fit rather quickly. So that's the basic difference. Where, as a body, the Planning Commission is subject to the state land use laws, and anytime you amend titles 10 or 11, you have to go through the process with the state.
Now, I thought I heard you say 11 and 13 before.
I'm sorry, it was 10 and 11. I think 13 was added recently, and that had more to do with prior ballot measure 56 claims. We have not used that title as long as I've been working back here, it's just been titles 10 and 11, which is zoning and then land divisions.
Now, the municipal code includes the building code.
Yes, it does. And also includes land use. It also includes nuisance, enforcement measures, how things are, incorporates, I think it incorporates the charter. It also, or the charter is usually included in that. Anything on water rates or water hookup requirements, sewer, that sort of thing, all that is in the municipal code. But the city council has far greater flexibility than regard on those matters than regarding land use. Land use is just a separate animal.
Now, I thought I heard you say land use was a subset of municipal code. Some land use is and some is not.
Well, no, everything's part of the municipal code. I guess the thing to do, we have some, I think 17 chapters in the Yamhill Municipal Code. I might be given, give or take one or two, but titles 10 and 11 from the municipal code are specifically related to land use and are subject to the provisions of adoptions and amendments based on state law. So you take those two out. Yes, they're part of the code, but they're two special entities and we have to answer to DLCD.
All right, that's straightened out for me. Thank you. Now, we're looking at building codes. They all start with 9. Is that, it says chapter 9. Is it also built title 9?
It would not cover that because basically that is adopting the international building codes. Basically, someone else has the set of codes. And I think the state works on the international building code. And it just simply says we adopt these codes for the city. And those are enforced through Yamhill County building.
Okay, so these chapter titles, these chapter numbers and the titles that you're quoting are not the same thing.
No, and that's why I'm saying under titles 10 and 11, we have a number of chapters. And those chapters we can discuss. In fact, let's see how quickly I can get this up here. Hold on for a moment.
Well, this is, I don't know what we're looking at.
Come on.
This is all statement. We just adopted.
4 and
Still confused.
Walt, what about the grant we just got? Does that
Okay.
affect this at all?
Yeah, I will discuss that. We have 33 chapters in our Title 10. So that covers everything from zoning to overlay zones, et cetera. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 6 chapters in Title 11. So that's a total of 39 chapters over the 2 titles. Now, the question.
It looks like Angie has printed out she's printed out chapter 9, building codes. She's also printed out Title 10 and Title 11.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I have.
Right.
True.
What you cover, what you have authority over, what you have, yes, authority and you're involved in on a daily or it's certainly monthly basis are titles 10 and 11. That's the city council appointed you 4 + 1, Sean's not there, appointed the 5 members of the planning commission as the overseeing committee for titles 10 and 11. You have a very special role in the city. And in fact, I believe planning commissions are the only other group in a municipality or county that have decision authority. How's that? It's the council or commissioner, and it's the planning commission. The only groups that actually can make decisions. So your role is to, if you will, with staff to administer titles 10 and 11.
So if the code that makes sense for us to review is titles 10 and 11.
Correct.
And really nothing else.
Correct. That's absolutely correct. And there's, as I said, there's 39 chapters in there. Some of them would be very simple to look at. In fact, I probably wouldn't even touch, for example, floodplain, because that's all basically whatever FEMA says you got to do, you got to do. But there are other things that, no, as long as you want to have flood insurance in town, you basically have to follow their rules. There are other chapters that are pretty simple. Others can be a little more complex, but you would have 39 chapters in which to deal with.
Okay. Now, also printed out for us is chapter 9 called Building Codes. And like you said, it's mostly some other authority already has these codes and we're using those.
Right, exactly. In other words, the city has subscribed, if you will, to the state regulations, and they are administered through the county. We have a governmental agreement with the county, and they go ahead and that's where the building permits wind up.
Okay, so of the 17 chapters approximately of municipal code, we're probably only going to be paying attention to these two, 10 and 11.
The two titles, 10 and 11, yes, sir.
Two titles, okay. All right, now how to do that? Now, so changes to those are the ones that take this long process.
Correct. In other words, it's not just a matter of looking at it. If you want to make changes, there's a whole process you got to go through. Harken back to the electronic message center. And those are, and you will have some idea what you would be going through 39-fold. I mean, you would be looking at changes here and there, and you would be having one adoption to the amendments to the code. So there are things that, that's something to look at, whether or not you want to kind of play the long game and go through the whole code, or whether you want for this one grant I'm applying for to go ahead and focus in on matters of, again, the nuisance lighting, business related code matters, looking at the C3 zone, the overlay zone, thinking about design provisions. And then also, obviously, the council has interest in the fat oil and grease and short-term rental. Again, I would suggest that while the Planning Commission certainly has a role in maybe advising, those should not be part of Title 10 or 11 because they're more related to administration and taxing with regard to short-term, and the other one, FOG, that is certainly related to the public works provisions within the municipal code. So we certainly have a role in those, and we can make a recommendation, but that's going to be ultimately up to the council to make a determination on.
So that list that you just gave that we've been assembling, those will all be codes that will fall not in titles 10 and 11. We're going to put them in the municipal code.
Right, and that would certainly, because let me see, one community I worked in, they actually took out all their short-term rental information that was in the land use code, and they put it into a separate municipal set of regulations. Another community that I was working at was also in the process of doing the same. In fact, it was on the advice of their attorney, just you really got to separate those two. I never quite understood the legal reason, but from a real practical reason, again, the city has a lot more flexibility. When things change economically or whatever, city has far more flexibility if it's out of land use planning.
Okay, so I think we have two things we're going to do at once. And one is that list, which will fall into municipal code. Those things are you say, would say by and large are not already in, Titles 10 and 11. So that
That-
list,
That is correct. In other words, I'm looking at the fog and short-term rental as, I think, if I understand it correctly, the council would like a little advice on it, but it's ultimately, they're gonna have to make the decision on the adoption, because we're not talking land use matters here. We can provide some recommendations, and I think Public Works Director should certainly be involved in any final discussion. And also the city attorney is going to have to look at it to make sure it's correct to form, et cetera, and we're not violating other provisions of the municipal code. But I think we have a outside advice, but we're not rendering a recommendation. How's that? Big difference. Land use case, we make a recommendation to the council. Here, we're providing advice, that's all.
okay, thank you, that's a great distinction. I think we're gonna do both, in other words, that list, and then also take it, a section at a time of 10 and 11 and work through those over time. That's what the mayor asked us to do. So I think bite-sized chunks of that will be good for our education and doing what the mayor asked to see if there's things that we should change.
Actually, that does make a lot of sense, because what we need to do is everyone bring in their code and we could go through it. I know it's going to be just sort of read a chapter before we get together and just see if there are any issues. And we might be able to go through this kind of quickly. I know we're going to have some serious discussions, but in the end, there may be enough stuff there that we could make one application to make the amendments as opposed to doing it piecemeal. However, saying that, what I'm hearing is that the matter of the downtown is of like immediate importance. The C3 zone, the central business district overlay, looking at some lighting issues in terms of planning titles 10 and 11, that's an immediate concern. And what I'm also hearing, I believe, is that I should make the technical assistance grant focused on those. I think we might have a little bit better chance. That does not prevent us from coming back, say, a year from now and going back for another technical assistance grant to maybe make other modifications that the planning commission finds to be beneficial. So that's my thinking right now, based on this discussion. And any thoughts or?
Okay, well, I'm straightening out what I'm hearing. I think I've heard wrong. At first, just a little bit ago, we said that none of that list was in Title 10 and 11, but
A and B are.
A and B?
Yeah.
What is
The formula business and the lighting
Yes,
would be central business.
right. So the formula business and the lighting would both be in Title 10?
Correct.
Okay, so we will be doing work in Title 10. We'll have to have hearings to change those.
Correct. And what we do, first things first, let me apply for the grant. And Ken, if you don't mind, I'd like to coordinate with you to make sure I'm on the right path. I'd like you to look at the grant application, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because we're not going to have enough time between now and October 2nd to have the commission look at the application. I will follow through with the LCD guidelines, put it together, but I want to make sure I'm covering the basis for the city. So that would be that application. In the interim, nothing preventing us from going through the code page by page. I think it would be a very good exercise the more I think about it. And I think if we make any changes down the road, I think the beauty of it is the commission initiated them. They are taking ownership. And I think everyone's going to learn from that. And I think we'll come out with a better document.
let's be strategic, since there are two things right in front of us. I see 10.46 is the central business district overlay zone.
right?
And that, let's get to it. And where would lighting be? It's not jumping out at me.
Ken, I didn't print that off for them, so I can run and do that.
Yeah.
You wanna-
Sure. Yeah, we'll need to, it'd be nice for them to take it home tonight if we're gonna assign homework. Let's figure out the other section we wanna look at.
Okay.
We've got 1046.
10.46.
And what about lighting? Walt, do you see where that might be?
Let me pull up the,
What's the difference between 10 and 11?
11 is just land divisions.
Land,
Yeah, that's it. You know, I'm looking at, let's see. Land use building permit procedure. There's nothing wrong with making amendments. Okay, boy, I'm gonna sound like a politician here, but bear with me.
yeah,
If you're looking at just focusing on lighting for the downtown, that would be covered under 1046, period.
okay,
If you're looking at something a little more citywide, that would probably be under chapter 1048, where you have general provisions. That's sort of, every code has a general provision. That's sort of a catch-all. In other words, if you can't think of any other place to put it, you put it in general provisions. So that would be one way to look at it. I would probably focus on the downtown, and because I think that'll be a very good tie-in to everything else you want to do. You talk about lighting intensity, a number, location, and I think that would fit very well with the downtown. In fact, I think part of what you may need to do is, I'm already kind of thinking, you know, make sure that we're satisfied with the boundaries, what type of uses we want in there. There's a lot we can do here. And
wow,
so I
Yeah.
think lighting, if lighting is tied into the commercial, focus on making amendments to 1046. I think that's the logical place.
And, okay, it's only 2-3 pages. I thought we might throw 1048 in just while we're at it.
Okay, I mean, again, it depends how far and wide you want to look at the lighting. But my thing is, at this juncture, I think I hope I have some direction here to focus on amendments to the C3 zone, which is your commercial zone, and also look at the overlay district and incorporate things such as lighting and also formula businesses. In other words, take that as a package of economic development, revitalization, and focusing on our commercial zone.
Yes,
Does that provide a suitable summary?
yeah, the formulaic business is nowhere in our code right now.
That's correct. This is something that is,
New.
yes, thank you. This is something that is new. And I'm going to be going on the Planners Network to see if we have any other communities that are doing this. And I want to spend a little more time doing background, but you know, we could always ask. I'm not saying we'll get everything, but if you know, if we want to include it, I'm certainly thinking it makes a lot of sense. So in this way, I think the Planning Commission and the community can effectively focus on the issues of the downtown. I know that has been the hot subject for the last few months. I know there's a lot of interest. The Economic Committee has been looking at issues and making recommendations to the commission. So I would certainly focus in on those matters of C3, overlay, and incorporate matters of formula business and lighting.
Now, lighting and overlay are already in Title 10, and they will probably stay there.
Right, whatever you have, but I'm still gonna look at lighting elsewhere within the code. I mean, I'm just thinking that if we're looking at the business aspect, probably would want to make any amendments to 1046. If we're looking at something a little bit more, I'll see what else we have. But I'd like to just, as a suggestion, just kind of focus on that. And I think we'll have a tighter application with DLCD.
Okay, now, however, the formulated business plan, we don't plan to put into Title 10 or 11. We plan to put it into a different chapter in municipal code, correct?
No, I would put that into 1046.
Okay,
Absolutely. This is, see, that's planning. That's where you're
I was
making.
thinking the same thing, but I heard you saying earlier, we want to avoid 10, 11, we want to put everything in municipal, outside of that,
No,
we can.
No, the only thing I think should be in the muni code other than planning is the fat oil and grease and
Okay.
short-term rental. Everything else, I think we should put into Title 10.
Okay, so it will
Yeah.
require all the hearings and the process and the time, okay,
Right.
got it. Well, I think we should focus right here, right now on this instead of starting at the beginning because it's so up for us in so many ways. So
Okay.
let's go down to 1046, 1048. I think it's very short. Not that I want to do it tonight, but I think,
I'd like to have a copy if we're doing it tonight.
right. What do you think?
Well, my thought right now is let me apply for the grant because
Okay.
otherwise we may be doing work that doesn't bear fruit when we could spend the time working on the other chapters going from one end to the other. I still have to apply for the grant. And that was, I think, in the September 7th meeting, I put a little memo there. Let's start thinking about what you want me to do for the grant application. And that was, that's item B under other business. And I think that's what we focused on here. I just need some direction. I did not want to go off into the wilderness without making sure I'm reflecting Yamhill's needs. And so it sounds like, based on the comments you've received from Econ Development, and I think the interest on the commission, again, looking at the C3, the overlay zone, and incorporating formula business and nuisance lighting into sort of a package that I can apply for technical assistance through the state. They will basically pick up most of the tab. So, that probably, hey, if they can pay for it and we're going to get the benefit, I'm certainly all for that.
Okay, so I guess I heard you saying, in the meantime, let's just start at the beginning and start going through.
Yeah, in the interim, there's nothing wrong with hold on, let me just kind of pull that thing up again. Maybe maybe go through chapter 04 and 08 and just see if there's any issues that you have and maybe be prepared for the next meeting. So look at chapter 1004 and 1008. 04 is the welcome to the zoning code, and 08 is the definitions. And I think it would be a good place to start and just kind of start our discussion. And I would suggest we be prepared for the next meeting.
So back to the grant the other money that you already applied for?
Yes.
What's that for?
Okay. I put it under A, and I think I brought this up before. Urban growth expansion is off the table until January 1, 2025. So we cannot look at a UGB expansion until that date. However, looking at UGB expansions require a lot of background work. For example, looking at your code, whether it's, is efficiently using residential land, looking at a buildable land inventory to see what you have available, etc. I applied for a housing assistance grant, which kind of leads me to that. It started off with an urban growth boundary expansion, but it ultimately led to a housing assistance grant. We did, and it was basically looking at two things: looking at code amendments to improve the availability of housing. Are the lots too big? Are they too small? Can we have alternate housing? I mean, basically have a good update on our residential zones. The other thing too is that the legislature has adopted a lot of modifications that don't directly apply to Yamhill, but the city may want to consider as a stopgap measure to provide additional housing opportunities. The other part of the grant application, and it was like, if we can get it, fine. If not, let's just go with what we can get. They noted that they may be able to fund a buildable lands inventory. So what happened to the application? The application went in. We didn't make the cut for the particular grant. However, because and this is unusual, because the money was undersubscribed, there's a pot of money left over for communities to use. And I got a letter from the state that said we will be awarded money to go ahead with our project. So what I'm just waiting for is the last day for cities to confirm, excluding us, the last day for all the other cities to confirm, they wish to proceed with their monies is the end of this month. And so they want to see how much money is left over. So long story short, we got a grant. We have to wait until after September 29th to figure out the allocation for us. But we got it. And so we can't start on this until January 1 of 2024, but there's going to be some kind of negotiation, who does what, where, and the Council of Governments may be doing the buildable lands inventory. They've done quite a few. And again, we do the lands inventory, we look at our code. We've done about 50% of what needs to be done to get our urban growth boundary expansion. And if we can get them both done, and the state picked up the tab, not us. So this could be very good for the city.
All right, thank you. I did a calculation on the Title 10, 11. There's 178 pages. If we're going to get it done in a year, that's 15 pages. So 15 pages lands us 4, 8, and 12. So if we pick up the single family, we'll R1 chapter.
Okay.
Kind of stay on course there. So Andy, we can wait around after you print, or you can go print now if you think you've got enough.
She's in doing the other two.
She's doing the other two?
Yeah.
I'll ask her to add R1. Oh, boy, that's good. Move around.
How's your brother-in-law?
Is that eagle facing the wall?
Not very good.
The eagle, the American flag. The eagle, how the American flag. It's facing the wall around.
Looks like it's facing this direction.
Did you turn it?
Yeah, it should be facing that.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. That should be.
Do you have anything to do with Yahat?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
Other than going there once in a while.
okay. They've been working on the formalistic business code.
Oh, good to know. And again, I'm going to go through the Oregon Planners Network. And I got a good lead on some very good language for fat oil and grease.
Newburgh has got a good one on the fat oil and grease.
Okay. What I found that the one I was looking at was City of Milwaukee, and I like the way they do it. They simply say, we're not going to have you install anything unless it's causing a problem. And if it's causing a problem, then you have to install. So all the new restaurants and whatever always have it installed. That's building code. But the older ones that don't have it, if they're not generating a lot of problems, then they don't make it an issue. But if they are, then that's when they are basically in violation of the code and they have to install the necessary equipment.
So how do they tell? Ooh.
They have testing equipment and they can find out where the, shall we say, where the stuff is coming from.
Which is what we're gonna do next time.
She's gonna print out all the words too. All the stuff, just so we stay in course to get that done. All right, well, I feel all straightened out there, squared away. Anything more to add on that, Walt?
No, I guess my one concern is with the fat oil and grease short-term rental, how should I proceed with that? I know, should I come up with some language that you present to the city council, or how would you like me to do it?
Yes, I thought you would present your, put together your best shot and let us read it.
Okay.
And ask questions, just kind of the first filter, and then maybe we won't have any changes, we'll just be reformed and agree with it, and then say, this is what we think, and hand it to them.
I think that's great. That's the exact direction I need. Let me also give you a heads up. It looks like we'll have one, possibly two land use applications next month. So, yeah. So, yeah, things are starting to move along, especially with these other projects. So, I will definitely have that material ready for next month for you to consider and also be prepared for 04, 08, and 12.
Yes. And can you give us a preview of what the land use applications are?
One of them is a partition, which is one of the things I like to discuss, that some of these types of applications might be better handled on a staff level instead of planning commission. But, this is something that we're going to discuss. The other one is a property line adjustment, but based on the current code, because the percentage of land that's changing hands, instead of a staff review, we have to go to the planning commission.
Okay.
The first one is a definite. The second one is a maybe.
Okay, so you feel like the first one, the code could have been, you're feeling like maybe the staff just should have been able to take care of this in the first place?
Yeah, let me give you an example. I worked in Sheridan and they had a situation where accessory buildings, for example, a garage, if it was, you can get a building permit up to 400 square feet. If it was over 400 square feet, it required a conditional use application and a hearing before the planning commission. Well, we heard, I think, 1, 2, 3 or 4 of them within a period of 6 months. And after the fourth one, third or fourth one, I said, do you guys really want to look at these? Is it important for you? And their response was, no, it could be pretty simple, that you can have some design requirements, etc. So the code was amended to have certain things looked at staff and only if there was a variance or something, go into the planning commission. And again, I think that's a good kind of follow-up to what you were discussing. Let's go through the code and find these things now. And simple things that can be done and changed. But a lot of minor stuff, for example, this property boundary adjustment, it's only going before you because there's a change of greater than 10% on one parcel. It really doesn't make a lot of difference.
Okay.
So that could be a staff level.
All right, well, I think we're done with new business, the planning code. We've, oh, please.
I still think we need to do the central district and the overlay.
You do.
I mean, I think that should be the top of what we do, and he said that also.
Yes, I also heard, well, Sue is saying that we should be working on the central district overlay and the C3.
Yes, exactly.
But I heard you say we're waiting for a grant.
Well, okay. If we can have someone else pay us, I'm all for that. And we have quite a bit of ways to go in any review before we get to C3 and the overlay. So I'm applying for a grant, which is called a technical assistance grant. We would have, if approved, we would have monies from DLCD where we can look specifically and make immediate changes to C3, Central Business District overlay, which is 1046, and incorporate within that issues on lighting and also formula business. So the whole idea is that that grant will focus that. And whereas we can continue to go to through the code and make changes at the back end. But it was my understanding that the Economic Development Committee really saw the business district as vital, and also probably could have a good look at it. So, and that's where I'm going to make the application for.
So is that your question as to why we're not doing that right now?
Yeah, but we are, as soon as we get the grant, though, that will get worked in right away.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, fingers crossed that we get the grant. The city has not been awarded grants from the state for years. And I'm hoping that they will see this as, you know, the city wants to do good things, and I will let Melissa know, our field rep, that, hey, we're trying to do good things, and economic development, believe me, that's a big buzzword right now. So I think that'll be beneficial.
Okay, well, Kristen's still online and I'm part of the committee. So is there anything that we need to do at our October 4th meeting that will help you with this grant, or anything to get prepared for using your availability as soon as it's there?
Actually, right now, no, the grant's due October 2. If along the way you have thoughts, ideas, maybe language I might want to look at, I might incorporate certain things in the grant application, and you're certainly welcome to.
Well, that'll be after, our meeting is not till after that's.
Okay, well, I tell you what, the committee, as individuals, you're welcome just to contact me if you have a thought. If you just go, we're thinking this might be a good way of going, no problem with that. Once the grant is awarded, you know, again, I'm hoping once the grant is awarded, then yes, the Economic Development Committee. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned that, because one good component, let me write this down, is citizen involvement. And if we can have the Economic Development Committee basically stand in as a citizen advisory committee, that would be great. That would be great. So
I think we're all willing.
okay, I tell you what, I will definitely confirm that with you before I pass things in. But, oh, that'll be good. That'll be good.
So how long does it take for the money to be available then?
Oh, they move at their own speed. I'm trying to be polite. They move at their own speed. They have to go through all the applications. Then they have to figure out which ones they're going to award. And then they have to sit down and go through basically a contract with the city, and that has to be approved by everyone. I honestly don't think, if I recall the schedule, you start before January or February of next year.
Okay, thank you.
Is this a
Okay.
grant to pay you, Walt?
It's a grant that goes to the city. Now, they could hire someone, they can agree to have me do it, but also we have staff that needs to photocopy stuff, mail stuff out. All those little incidental things that cost money would be incorporated in the grant.
So are you're qualified to do all these things, though? The city they would ask you, and then you would tell them your qualifications and they would agree that you're a guy that could do it?
I would like to think so. At nearly 40 years of work, yes, that I probably have learned a few things.
Okay.
But again, that's what I was saying earlier. I've written a number of codes and I've gone through dozens upon dozens of code amendments. And I've looked at, for example, the sort of downtown planning issues for the city of Dayton years ago. So, I mean, these things are, I am familiar with. I'll just leave
Okay,
it at that.
great.
Yeah.
Great. So I guess my question is, these are all things you're familiar with, they're in your comfort zone, they're your experience.
Yes.
New to you, it's not got you, like, boy, I'm not sure I'm gonna handle that.
Right. We're not talking transportation system planning. Okay, that's different animal, which, by the way, I'm going to really suggest when the next set of grants come around for TSP or Transportation Growth Management Act, the city gets on board with the TSP. You don't have one. You really need one, because you can't make improvements on any street, road, whatever, safe walks to school, bicycle paths, none of that unless you have a plan. No plan, no money. Simple as that.
TSP, transportation.
System plan. And so I think they're going to be calling for requests later next year, early part of 2025. And that's where basically the state will select a consultant to do the work. That's something I would not even want to touch.
What will tickle our calendar who, is that up to us to?
Yeah.
Angie, or who's gonna do that?
No, they have a set time when these grants are announced. So
Now, who's gonna be listening? Who's gonna be listening when they're announced? Who gets that email?
I get that email that also goes
Okay.
out to the planners network. And generally DLCD goes ahead and if they award the grant, they have an outside consulting firm come in and do the work, and the city just monitors the progress. So yeah, it's believe me, a lot better from someone to come out and look at it, clear vision, and go ahead and make some assistance here. So
Okay, so you're the alarm. When the email comes, you're gonna go, oh yeah, TSP, Yamhill.
yeah, yeah.
Apply now, yep, okay.
yeah.
Anything we need to do to be ready for it?
No, they're not going to make the grant announcement for another year or so. In fact, they just wrapped up the last biennium TSP this last June or July, and they already started with this current round. So yeah, we're the next round out. So it's just a matter of timing. I think it would be great to have a lot of this preliminary work done, especially the buildable lands inventory and looking at our code. That will certainly help with that. But I will let you know when that comes along. Just please do not hold your breath.
I remember overhearing some chit chat, maybe it was in our room or city council about somebody had a way to get a push button flashing yellow light for our crossing here.
Oh, that'd be great.
Who was saying that? Nobody heard that?
That was in the council.
I was in council.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was
and who
Jason a
saying
few
that?
months back.
And they were sounding like they knew what they were talking about.
Jason, a few months back, was talking about a flashing light.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a push button.
Okay, no, I don't know that either.
Yeah.
I added that in because that's what they all are. But
Mhm.
a flashing, it has the big bing, 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 and it goes for a minute while somebody crosses.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that we would want this TSP to pay for, right? Well, we'd like that TSP grant to pay for something like a flashing yellow pedestrian assist cross in our main intersection here.
That could, but understand the grant just gets you a plan. That's all it does.
Oh,
And within the plan, then it might say, here's improvements we need to make at certain crossings,
yeah.
pedestrian safety. But as I said before, you want the money, you got to have the plan. However, it probably wouldn't hurt to maybe contact ODOT separately, have Public Works contact ODOT and just say, hey, we are concerned, is there some way that you can consider these improvements? And you'll be surprised how, sometime money pops up. I recall when I worked in Lebanon, it was the end of the fiscal year for ODOT, and they had a pile of money left over, and they paved Highway 26 all the way from the north end of Lebanon all the way to the south end of Lebanon. And that was about, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles. No, maybe 2 or 3. Because they had the money, they had to spend it. So there might be surplus monies out there. But I think probably Public Works should go ahead and contact ODOT, especially if they have a connection, and just kind of put a bug in there that we're seeing this issue. And if the police chief can also add to that, yeah, we've had accidents here and whatnot, and it's sort of dangerous. You might be able to pry some bucks out of them.
Angie, is that something that do you want me to call Jason and have him start that, or is that something you could do in the office? You kind of see Jason a lot, and you could.
What are you wanting?
Make that suggestion that he call
ODOT?
That Public Works call ODOT, and maybe have some backup from Chief Garvin already, and that crossing. Is that something that's your job, Angie? Is that okay, or should I do that? Talk to Jason Walker.
I can talk to Jason.
Okay, great. If you'll put that bug in his ear too.
Okay.
About a crosswalk here, and see if ODOT just says, well, yeah, and as soon as he tells you got some reasons, then we'll come put it in. It'll be done in a few months. It might happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I heard you say, well, we get a grant for the plan, but we don't get grants to do what's in the plan without a plan.
Precisely, you got it.
Okay.
You got to have the plan to get money.
All right, thank you. It kind of leaves us the two issues that are in front of us that aren't in Titles 10 and 11 are the fat oil grease and the short-term rental. Are you comfortable then with going ahead with your best shot for us to review? Are you feeling like that's what you can do now comfortably?
Yes, I can. Again, I went on the Planners Network, and a number of planners pointed out municipal codes they've worked with that had this sort of grease trap issue. And again, the one I looked at in Milwaukee made it very clear, if you're not sending grease at a certain level down the pipe, you're fine. But once you exceed a certain level, you have to take care of it. And that way they don't go back to every old restaurant and say, you got to fix it in 90 days, only if there's an issue with that particular place. So I kind of like the way they did it. It wasn't a strong arm tactic. It was recognizing we're not going to have you do anything unless there truly is an issue. My other recommendation, which I'm going to probably put forward, is that anytime you can have, you know, a program that says, here's why we're doing it, here's why it's important, here's our concern at the treatment plant. And if there's any way to get some outside funding or assistance to help some of these places, you know, look at it as a project, if you will, and not just regulation. So yes, I will be back next month with that and revise the short-term rental to keep things a little easier.
Have you heard how that level of grease, that triggering level of grease is determined?
I believe they have testing equipment for that. I just gave it a cursory examination, but they go ahead and they can find out where the problem lies. And it was pretty disgusting to see some of these pipes this big and 80% of the pipe had grease in it.
Yeah, no, I've seen them.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Maybe Jason has a knowledge of where it's coming from, and but yeah, that'll be interesting to find out how it's monitored.
Okay.
Okay.
So is there anything that would be a guideline for if there would be any funding available? Because we've got enough of them here in town that it can conceivably put a burden on them to do this. And if we, like you said, if it was a project and we could say, okay, we've got 7 of them, let's just say that as a number, and they could apply. Is there a way of putting together something that would help?
I'm not too sure from a planning perspective. This falls under like a public works issue. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to put some language together and run it by Jason, along with some suggestions that he may want to consider. He may be aware of funding that's out there that could help these folks. Again, I see this more through, you know, building streets than anything else, but he might be aware of some of these funds. I know the state is trying to be a little bit more helpful in public works, and some of these little kind of low-hanging fruit sort of things, like fixing older systems, can go a long way to making the treatment plant last a little longer. So he may be aware of some monies out there.
Okay, I'm getting to the end of unfinished business. Anybody have anything on their mind before we move on to wrapping this up?
Well,
Item 6?
yeah, UGB, and we've got a whole year to do it, you know, basically 15 months. But then again, if we say 15 pages, like we're saying, is there anything that we need to have as a goal to have something, you know, 3 months from now or 6 months from now or something to be ready for this UGB to be?
No, I will probably find out more about the grant after the 29th, and I will report back. I mean, every meeting, I will give you updates on this thing, because it may take a little while to get this thing off the ground. Again, they are going to fund it. It's just a matter of there's some other priorities they have to fund, but they did have a pot of money available for us. So I'm very thankful for that. Especially, I mean, it was really last minute for me to put this together.
No, but I'm saying the UGB thing, that
Oh,
we-
no, UGB, we're not gonna be able to do anything for at least a year, year and a half.
being ready for it?
If we can get this grant completed and get a buildable lands inventory and get that done sometime middle of next year, we're gonna be about 50% or more of the way to getting a UGB expansion. I mean, that is a lot of background work right there. And that's the thing. This grant's gonna be very helpful for the city for those background things. And then we could start looking at it a little bit more seriously, probably about a year from now.
Those background things are things that we have to hire consultants to do, correct?
The UGB, I think it may be something we may want to consider because it gets a little bit legal entanglement. Let me put it this way. I think it was McMinnville tried to expand their UGB. I think they spent $4 or $5 million and were unsuccessful. And I think, I mean, they have far greater issues and interest than we do in terms of Yamhill. We just got to be prepared that we can make a real good case. We don't want to go in and hope, but I think if we go in with a good case, for example, Lafayette, they want to get 40 acres for a UGB expansion. I think the state said that's not enough. You need 80. So, I think everyone's trying to be as reasonable as possible. McMinnville just had some issues and also interest groups that kind of thwarted their UGB. But, that's just kind of crazy in my mind. They have to spend that much money and get a no. But I don't think we're going to run into that. So let's see how we do the changes. Let's see what the buildable lands inventory comes up with. And I'm really hoping we can get that chunk of it. And then let's go forward and see where we are. And I think we'll find that, yeah, we really need to expand it.
Very good. Anything else? All right, information announcements, 3 commission terms ending, and you've got everybody's attention on that. Next meeting.
I think October 16th is the day.
Yes, very good. Anything else? All right, well, we'll come back on October 16th. We'll be experts on 10-4, 10-8, and 10-12.
Excellent.
We've done a little research, gone out and educated ourselves, and not have to ask all the dumb questions like I do. We'll be a little bit ahead of the game. All right, thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Are we ended?
We're ended.
We're ended.